All right, a very good morning to you. It's good to see you on this Tuesday morning. I hope that you are well, wherever you're watching us from. Are you dealing with the postman, the man, or you know, real or not? I hope that you're well this morning. So good to see you. This is Your World. My name is Winnie Lubem, and of course, we have very important conversations that we need to cover in today's show. And of course, we have, you know, two parts of the same. So for this first part, we're going to talk about COVID, okay? And I know majority of us, you know, when you mention COVID, everyone's like, hiya, when we still have COVID? Yes, it is still here with us. And of course, like the Ministry of Health keeps saying, we are not out of the woods yet. And of course, there's a lot of calls, and this is as far as vaccination is concerned. So today we just want to take a look at how are we doing as far as the vaccination is concerned. You know, are we seeing an increase in the number of people who are going to either get vaccinated for the very first time? There are a number of people who have not been vaccinated. Are you going for your second dose? Are you going for the booster shots? And how are we doing as a country? You know, and even in different counties. But of course, we'll also focus a little bit on Nairobi today. So you want to stick around for the next, 30 minutes. All right. So we have this conversation. Of course, to help us with the same, we have Lillian Mutua, who's the head health promotion Nairobi City County. Thank you so much, Lillian, for making time for us this morning. And I'm just going to ask you that very question that everybody keeps talking about, COVID. Kwani bado kuna COVID? Let's just start from there.
COVID is still with us. We know that even up to now, people are getting seriously sick, ending up in hospital, very serious illness. And once in a while, we find that they are COVID positive. And the most interesting part is that when they are tested to be positive, those who get critically sick, if you look in their COVID vaccination history, they've not been vaccinated. Okay. So it's very real that the COVID vaccine helps us to not get very serious disease and not also to develop further complications. So we are not yet out. And just like I was talking to you a while ago, people in Nairobi and other parts, you find people are saying, I have this severe cold.
Yes. Was it like, what,
around 2 weeks ago, yes. And then mid-January and also the end of December. People are coughing, people are saying that they have homa and they are feverish. So it's just because we stopped the mass testing, which right now is not the strategy. But even for those who are referred, they turned out to be positive.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So still COVID is here.
COVID is still with us.
Here with us, and we cannot ignore the fact that, you know, we're not out of the woods yet, and just take all the necessary precautions. And as much as some of these measures were, you know, laid down a little bit, it doesn't mean that we are completely out.
Yes, and especially when people are saying that there's that cold. We've seen the masks did magic for us. Yes. And even those people who normally get allergies, people who get asthma, people who get the respiratory infections every now and then, that reduced with the mask. Yes. So when we hear people saying there's homa, there's sneezing, there's coughing, let us just put on the masks. Absolutely. So I think it's one of those preventive measures that we will learn as a healthy behavior for now and into the future. Yeah, I remember the former CS, Mutahi Kagwe, kept insisting that you need to take the precautions. You don't have to wait until the government announce and say, you yote lazima buy masks. So that we all put on masks. You put on your mask, you know, for yourself. But let's track, you know, the vaccination, right? How are we doing as a country? Because so far we have what, 1.7 you know, million adults that have been vaccinated in Nairobi, right? But what about, you know, the countrywide situation? What do the numbers look like? I know Nairobi is the leading county so far. We are doing at 58% of our expected eligible population that's supposed to have been vaccinated. But we know that this being done, we have still some people who started the vaccination very late. We even have today people who are getting their first doses. So when we look at cumulatively from even the beginning of this year, we have those who have gotten their first, they are yet to get their second. So we normally look at the coverage for someone who has at least gotten to their second vaccination. But when we look at the larger Kenya, we know there are counties who are doing dismally poorly. We have people who are doing less than 10%, 20%. So we are not yet there. So you find that maybe the first 10 to 8 counties are doing pretty well.
All right.
Maybe heading to 50 or just slightly above 50, but most of the others are also trailing behind.
Yeah.
So unless we get to a point where we know we have vaccinated so many people, then we can say we are not yet out of this.
Out of the woods yet.
Yes.
Okay. So then why the disparity? Because in Nairobi alone we are at about 58% of total vaccinations, but then we also have other counties, that are not doing so well. So the big question is why the disparity? Is it that we have a lot of vaccines in Nairobi as compared to the other parts of the country, or what exactly is happening?
What we know is that first of all, people misinterpreted the information that was being given by MOH.
All right.
That is when the measures for COVID prevention were slightly eased. When people are told that they can now do without their masks, the transport sector can now go to full capacity, the social amenities like the churches were opened, people are told to go back to work.
Yeah.
People misunderstood that communication, and they thought it said COVID is over.
Okay.
So with that, there was a lot of relaxation. Then also when people were told that they will not maybe be able to access certain services, they only got the single dose, and they never went back to get the second one.
Okay.
Then the information that is in the social media has done a lot of damage. I remember just last week, someone was saying that in the US, the government has been told to step down the vaccination because some research has been done and this has been said and people have gone to this court. And when you really look at that information, it was not coming from the US government.
Yeah.
It was just someone who was pulling strings on social media. Also the issues associated with side effects. This has made people misunderstand what side effects are because they think that anybody who gets this vaccination then has their consequences after getting the vaccine. But for any drug that we take or any medication that we take, you're always told that there could be a side effect. Interestingly, that as much as we say people got side effects, we always tell people if you think that any side effect has been prompted by a medication that you've been given or a vaccination that you are given, kindly report to the health facility so that we can get that information, we can record that incident, and then we can follow up. But interestingly, people did not show up, people have not reported, so we don't even have a database of the side effect that the Kenyans got. Then also when we started the vaccination in Kenya, we had the eligible population that were on the first list. That is the frontline workers. Then we had the elderly, and then we had the people with comorbidities, because we were giving as the vaccines come in, we give priority to the people who are at most risk. So people also misunderstood that. If you look at the youth, that is people between 24 to 35, a lot of them have not been vaccinated. For them, they feel like because that information was given, then it means that they have immunity. But what is interesting is that they could be having a relatively good immunity, but when they get the consequences of COVID, they'll either get very sick, or even if they are not very sick, they also continue transmitting it to others.
Absolutely.
Also for the children who are 17 and below, because our MOH guidelines allow us to vaccinate children who are between 12 to 17 with COVID vaccine, and specifically with the Pfizer vaccine. We have also seen some of the parents not taking up the measure of allowing their children to get the vaccination. But Ministry of Health has worked very closely with Ministry of Education. We've had several stakeholders meeting. We keep updating them with any new information that comes in, and we really appreciate the parents and the teachers and the educationists within Nairobi County, because they've taken this up. For example, just when the schools were opening, we were able to even visit the schools where we talked with the parents as they brought their children to school. And also before the midterm, most of the schools in Nairobi were having parents meetings, and also the Board of Governors meeting. So we went there, we spoke to them, they were able to ask any questions they had, we addressed their concerns and worries, and even some of them, before they took their children now for the midterm, they were able to accept their children to get their vaccine. And not only the children, even some of the parents now understood, and they too got the vaccine at this point.
Interesting. All right. So what were the biggest concerns for the parents, especially when getting their children to
most of them feel like their children should not be vaccinated when they are not around. And we normally say if that is the issue, then for those who are in the day schools, we still offer vaccines in the religious institutions, that is the church, the temples, and the mosques. You could also arrange for that to be done. Then we also have teams that walk into the community on specific days over the weekends and also over the weekdays. And this is informed prior that this team will be visiting this site on a certain day. So this has also enabled us get vaccinated children who are 12 to 17. So we use different strategies for different people. Then we also have letters of notices that we write to the parents of the children who are eligible. And these notices are given through the schools, and the information reaches the parent. That is a notice of the vaccination ongoing on an expected day in a certain school. And this notice is delivered to the parent. So the parent will sign and give their ID number, their telephone number, write the child's official name and the NIMIS number. So when the child is being vaccinated, we normally have the NIMIS number and the parents' contact so that they can get that information. And we also keep a register at school and also with the facility that's vaccinating them.
I see that. All right. And you said, of course, they're being vaccinated between the 12 to 17
yes,
know,
with Pfizer.
Why is that?
This is the vaccine that was researched with that cohort and found to be safe. The rest, they didn't have people who came up. So this, and it's not only in Kenya, this is approved by WHO.
I see that. So, and you said something that's a little bit concerning for me, and that is the youth. Majority of them, have not been vaccinated, and yet this is a very active, age group, and all those things. They are outside, they are in masses. I mean, yesterday we had Mandamano, right? And of course they said this will continue every single Monday until something is done. So then that's, people congregating. Majority of them are young people. So because now the ministry is not conducting mass testing, mass vaccination and all those things. So then what happens in such instances so that we target this very active, age group?
We are working very closely with youth leaders. That is in the institutions of higher learning, the tertiary colleges, and we also look at their different social groups. For example, we've worked very closely with the Matatu fraternity, the border, the hospitality, that is here in Nairobi. And when we are looking at community entry, we also bring the different leaders of different youth groups on board. We talk to them, and we have found that from those conversations, they are able to bring their youths on board on a specific day at a specific site, and starting even with some of the leaders who are not vaccinated, they get vaccinated and then their peers get vaccinated. But it's not only for COVID. Even when we look at issues of teen pregnancy, issues of new HIV rates going up, it's also within that age group. So I'd also request the parents, the guardians, their caregivers, people who are decision makers and influencers for this youth, they should start these conversations with them. Because if in future we will have youth who don't have very good health, it also means we will not have a very able work population, and also it might also hamper their life expectancy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
In the
so
long
it is
run.
It's all round.
Yes. And I remember when we first had, you know, the vaccines here in the country, there's a lot of hesitancy, you know, amongst so many people. But again, that's changed over time, up until here we are today. Yes, the majority of people have been vaccinated, but also we have a lot of people who have not been vaccinated. Others, like you said, went for the first doses and completely disappeared. And one of the reasons were a lot of myth and disinformation surrounding, you know, the vaccines. The whole question about fertility, which a lot of people were scared about, right? So here we are today, and like we said, we're still, you know, not out of the woods yet. So dealing with those myths and disinformation, because there's a lot of campaign to tell people the truth about the vaccine and all those things. So what worked, what did not work, and what do we need? Is it time that we sort of like change tactics so that we also get people to get vaccinated and deal with the myths and disinformation?
For Nairobi, where we are today, it's because we listen to the community. We do very targeted messaging.
Okay.
Like if it's issues of fertility and fertility, we will listen to what the community is saying, and we will make targeted message towards that.
All right.
If it is issues of maybe
Pregnancy,
the population that is maybe pregnant and lactating mothers, we listen. We do what we call social listening.
All right.
We listen to what are their concerns and address that with facts.
All right.
And then we are able also to bring on board people who have been vaccinated and are of that cohort, and they give their own experiences after COVID vaccine.
Okay.
For people who are talking about fertility, there are people who got jabbed in 2021, people who got jabbed in 2022. Some of them have gotten children, some of them are now pregnant. So those are just myths and misconceptions.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So Nairobi has done fairly good, but like we said, again, there's still a number of people who have not been vaccinated. So what is it that some of these other counties can learn from Nairobi? I'm going to come back and so we can also talk about with the digital era, right? Everybody is, for example, on social media and all those things. So how do we harness the power of, you know, this digital space? But before that, what is it that other counties can learn from Nairobi? What has specifically worked? Because like you said, listen to the communities and address their concerns and give them the right information, making sure that there is enough vaccines for everybody. So what is it that these other counties can learn?
First, you need to look at your population, segment your population according to the eligible populations and what their worries are. If it is issues of men and fertility, then you should listen to these men, sit down with them and give them facts. Look at who are their influencers and decision makers and make them understand what are the benefits and importance of getting the COVID vaccine. Also, we need to look at where are some of these populations, because like we know even we have the nomadic population. So if it is a nomadic population, when do you vaccinate them? How do you track them, and which vaccine do you use?
All right.
If it is the those 12 to 17-year-olds, how do you get approval from their parents and caregivers for you to deliver that vaccine? So for Nairobi, what we've done is that we have multiple stakeholders at county level, at sub-county level, at ward level, up to village level. So you find like every month we have a stakeholders engagement, looking at specific issues that have come back, also addressing that, and then resolving that through all those stages up to the consumer level. And we have seen results.
We have seen results. Okay, but also making sure that there is availability, because I think, was it last year or the year before, there's a lot of complaints, you know, from the people who are saying, listen, yes, you want us to go and get vaccinated, which is good for us, protects us as a people, but then when we go to the facility, there are no vaccines, right? So then making sure that there is availability of vaccines, because again, there are some other areas that the ministry used to say, you know, it is far-reaching areas. By the time the vaccines, you know, get there, it is not viable, you know, and all those things. So making sure that, yes, the vaccines are available and people can get them.
So we've not really run out of vaccines at any given time. Maybe what I could say, maybe incidences of maybe some people doing wrong timing or not scheduling their vaccinations as appropriately and as friendly to the community. Because we don't even say that maybe if it's a far off region or a community that is living very far or has maybe moved direction, then the vaccine will not be viable. The viability of these vaccines is about storage, and all these vaccines are stored under a cold chain system. So we ensure that that is done. And if they have to move, even maybe moving from Nairobi, where we have the national stores, to the end where this vaccine will be used, there's a chain of how they will be taken there. And they even are flown to the very far regions. So we can't say that they will not be viable. We always check the cold chain system. This is routine, and reports are given on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. If there are any concerns, they are addressed. So the viability of the vaccine is there. The only thing I know is that at times we might not have all the 5 types of the vaccine. But research and WHO and Ministry of Health has said that they have allowed a mix of the vaccine. So maybe if you got AstraZeneca as the first dose, don't refuse to get a second one because AstraZeneca is out of stock. You can still get the Pfizer, you can still get the Johnson & Johnson. This will be discussed with you by the service provider, and you'll be given what is available and what suits you best.
Absolutely. Safety is one of the things that needs to be considered. All right, let's come back to Nairobi, right? Social media, and of course using the power of social media to, number one, either pass the message, because again, like we said, we had to deal with a lot of mis and disinformation, and also, you know, the vaccine hesitancy because of so many other reasons. So social media and the digital space, how has it worked?
For us in Nairobi, I can say that we've come a very long way. I think for Nairobi in 2022, we also started our Nairobi campaign, which is Pata Chanjo, Kuwa Chonjo, Kanairo Tuko Chonjo. You've seen these adverts. We also came up with our posters, which show people who are known and who are recognized in maybe health or in the religious circle or even youth. So we did this just to show people it's real. We've also at instances had people give their testimonials on short clips and share this on WhatsApp groups, and especially within communities. We've also had a lot of photography being done of people who are known in the community, and we sent that on WhatsApp community pages. So this has also given us a good space. All through, we've also been making specific county posters. Like if tomorrow we'll be maybe going to the All Saints or in Mwiki at a certain site, we do our posters 3-4 days in advance, telling people where this vaccination will be, the timing, the eligible population, and then we even share our emergency operations center number for health sector, Nairobi County, and you're able to call free of charge, ask any questions that you have. We'll address your concerns, and this has also been very good, because apart from the COVID vaccination, we are also asked about routine immunization for the babies. People ask us about the HPV. When we were doing the cholera, they were still calling and asking why they are not being reached, because we only had 2 counties. And also any health emergencies. That number has been used very frequently.
All right. So then when it comes to innovation, because like we said, a lot happened, you know, 2020, 2021, a bit in 2022, right? And this is in terms of the different approaches that the ministry takes, and Nairobi as well, just to make sure that people get the correct message and all those things. So then what sort of other innovations are being employed? I know you talked about social media, which is a good thing, but do you have like other, you know, innovations that you've had to, you know, employ just to make sure that, you know, the message is out there?
I also think we were the first county to start working very closely with the national government administrative officers. And they have been our frontline custodians of messaging, so that we make sure that wherever we are doing an activity, we have someone along that line. We also brought the teachers on board, the educationists, and at least we touch base with them every month. That is also another innovation for Nairobi County. We also have our own branding for COVID-19. You'll find us in aprons or in jackets or in t-shirts, written pata chanjo kuwa chonjo, COVID-19 vaccination, others written chanjwa. We have tents that we put in sites that are also having the COVID messages. We have banners. So we've gone a long way. The other thing we do is that we really leverage on media stations for getting the listeners to know what is happening in the COVID-19 and also COVID vaccination space. So we've worked very closely even with our community radios, with other online media stations, just to pass this information around. Not also forgetting, we have migrants in Nairobi who don't have their right papers. We have the vulnerable population, we have injecting drug users, we have the families who are homeless, living in the streets, we have people who have disability. So we make sure there's inclusion of all those people. And when we are having our stakeholders meeting, for example, right now we are at ward level, we look at who has not been reached. We are doing our micro plannings. We look at who has not been reached. We bring the decision makers, the influencers, the leaders of that population into our stakeholders so that we can have a candid conversation, and then we plan with community. The beauty of Nairobi is we plan with the community, including the upper hand. At the upper end, the upper social strata, you find that we work with the religious leaders because we have demarcated and known where do these people go to their religious institutions. We also look at their social spaces. Over the weekend, where do they go? We also take leverage of social events, be it a wedding, a funeral, people who are sporting, where there's entertainment. We have made sure we have penetrated these places. The hoteliers are also frontline workers looking at their job. So we've also approached them, and we have vaccinated very many employees in the hospitality industry. So you just need to understand how does your population work. With the people who are in the transport sector, the boda guys, the cab drivers, the matatu fraternity, we do not pull them from work. They give us a designated place along the route. And as they work, we vaccinate them. And the beauty for that has been, as we vaccinate this transport fraternity, the consumers of their services, their passengers also come down to get vaccinated.
Interesting. Interesting. All right, so just find ways that you can get to the people,
to the last person.
All right, so as we bring this to a close, because I can see our time is far much spent, now that we're not doing mass testing and mass vaccinations and all those things, I mean, you were very instrumental in making sure that us here at NMG got vaccinated, because you brought it here to
us. Center.
Exactly. So then, in terms of making sure that everybody, especially here in Nairobi, is vaccinated, because there's a lot of inter-county, movements as well. Maybe someone who was not vaccinated coming into the city, and all those things. Just to make sure everybody is vaccinated, what would you say, very briefly, as we went on the conversation? Especially
in CBD, we have had these sites at the Bomb Blast, at Kencom, at Country Bus, at Globe Roundabout, and also at the archives. And you find most people who are coming from other counties will always traverse those places. We have made sure that once in a while, maybe after every 2 to 3 weeks, we have a station there. And for the people who come from out of Nairobi County, they do not need anything else other than just give us their ID number and their telephone number. For those who have gotten the first, can still get the second. So like at around archives and Kencom, we've vaccinated very many people coming from Kajiado, Machakos County. Also from country bus, a lot of them from different areas. From Isili, at the shopping malls, we also vaccinate a lot of people who come up, who are coming to do business, and also who are coming from the northern frontier. Just before we finish, we are also giving the HPV vaccine, girls 10 to 15 years. We deliver this vaccine at school and also in the community and religious institution. And also let us remember, children have just been out on a mid-term holiday. We know that there are people who are traveling for different reasons, especially for business. We have seen a lot of Nairobi is very prime for inter-county transportation and also an international hub. Let us remember, we still have the cholera outbreak.
Yes.
It is not yet over since 2022, October.
Yeah.
So we are urging people to stop eating maybe by the roadside, not to make sure the water they are taking is safe. And in case you have any profuse diarrhea that is watery, effortless, the first measure we want you to take is to take a lot of water.
Okay.
We lose people because of cholera, just because of dehydration.
I see that.
So let them report for Nairobi. You can always call 1508 to give us your concerns or your worries, and we will be able to address.
I like that. Thank you very much, Lillian. I know time is like this much,
yes,
but we'll have you again.
MTV, for Nation Media. Those who still need their second and booster dose, we are readily available. Okay,
all right. I like that. Thank you very much, Lillian. I know we need more time to have this conversation, but we'll have you again, so that you also give us updates as far as how we're doing in terms of vaccinations and what we need to do to make sure that everybody is vaccinated. But allow us to end this conversation here today. Lillian Mutua, Head of Health Promotion right here in Nairobi County, giving us updates as far as how we're doing as far as COVID-19 vaccination and what we need to do. So if you have not been vaccinated, go to the nearest health facility near you and get vaccinated or get a booster shot. So let's take a break. But of course, when we come back, this week is also Global Money Week. And of course, today we want to understand health saving culture.
Cash. Skiza, non-nation.
Yo, Butru Seke, the sharp god up in the mix. Now I'm saying, NTV, shout out to you, bro. Keep it locked. Hey.
Sauti yako ina sound vizuri kwenye masikio.
I like it. Come to the dance floor, babe.
Angie.
Leo tuna festa pe banda. Festa pe banda. Another banda. And it's just like an amazing mix. I am happy today.
Sing kama vitu unanilea.
Oh yeah. Inaweka shida chini na tupa mikono juu. Banjuka tu.
No compromise, this the hottest combo.
Unistima, uninare. Mix on MTV. Don't touch that dial. Not yet. No, I
Welcome back. Glad you're still with us, and of course the show is your wild. Time really flies today. I don't know what is happening, but like we said, this week is a very important week that we all should be mindful about, and that is the Global Money Week. So we want to talk about money today, and of course with a special focus on the saving culture and how it can help inspiring economic development. And of course, to help us with that conversation, we have Mr. Raphael Mingisian Lekolol. I hope I've said it right. Managing Director, Postbank. It's so good to have you this morning. Thank you very much for sparing your time. And of course, we also have Stephen Jenga, who's the Country Director, Kenya, Light for the World International. Asante sana for coming by today as well, so that we can talk about this very important conversation. And this year, there's actually a very important, I would say, concentration, and this is as far as economical empowerment of young people, and that is those ones living with disabilities, which is very, very important as well. But Mr. Raphael, let me just start with you. Money saving, culture here in the country, and especially amongst young people. There's a lot of conversation about how Kenyan youth have a very poor, savings culture. What would you say? How are we doing? What is the issue? Why are the young people not saving as much?
Thank you, Ini. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, this morning, just to talk about money.
Yeah.
And for this year's, the theme for Global Money Week is Plan Your Money, Plan Your Future.
Yeah.
And this applies to the youth. You've asked a very relevant question, and which has really been top of mind for Kenyans, and coming from His Excellency the President, where he's hinted and talked about the low savings culture. It's been a while that this conversation has not really been on the table, and it's good that it's come really on the table now, and the young people are part of this conversation. When you look at what the president has done with the Hustler Fund and the savings component that is there, which is mandatory and also which will be available after some time, it's just part of creating that awareness to the youth. It's a culture that's not been very good. When you look at where the world is, as a region first, we are way behind the other countries. We are in our looking at the GDP versus savings, we are at around 10 to 14%. In the region, the other countries, Uganda, Tanzania, we are almost reaching 20, and the global average is around 23. So just looking at those numbers, we are way below where we should be. So can't really apportion blame, maybe because it's us as parents who've not really inculcated a savings culture on our children, and that's why it's important to have this global money week, because this week is usually an annual campaign that raises awareness on the importance of ensuring that young people from an early age are financially, literally aware, and they acquire the knowledge and skills and get that attitude and discipline to save. So this is a time for them to learn how to save. So it's up to us, from the industry, from the banking industry, from the media, just to create this awareness that something needs to be done so that we can plan our money and plan our future.
I like that. All right, because majority of us growing up, there's that love-hate relationship with money, right? That's traditionally people would say, ukiona mtu akona pesa huyo, maybe they did not get the money the right way, or money is evil and all those things. So I think we also need to sort of like, you know, change our perception and mindset really as far as money is concerned. The special emphasis, you know, on economical empowerment of young persons, especially, you know, those ones with disabilities. If I want you to speak on this, why is it very important, and what are some of the challenges, you know, affecting specifically persons living with disability, and especially when it comes to either accessing, you know, or even securing jobs as well, because it's a very interesting statistic on your side.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate that this year's Money Week is about not just talking about the savings culture, but also looking into special focus for youth with disabilities. When we're talking about saving, it's important to think about what it is that we are saving. Young people are finding it very, very difficult to survive in this economy, to get a job, and the kind of income they have, they are not able to meet their basic needs, leave alone have something to save. And if you look at our culture and our education system and the way things are changing, we have educated our youth on topics which have been relevant between the 70s and the 80s, and we never prepared them for the time that they live in for the moment. And we are in the right space talking about CBC and revising the kind of topics that we are teaching our youth. And money is one of the topics that was never really talked about. The youth were never taught how to handle money, why you should save, what types of savings are there, how should you make investments. Light for the World runs a program that supports youth to be employable and to understand how to sell themselves as a product in the market. And we are looking here at income, because if they are unable to generate an income for themselves, then they are unable to make any savings. And youth with disabilities are more disadvantaged than most. It's 8 times more difficult for a young person with a disability to get a job. And even when they get a job, their chance of growth, their chance of scaling within the business, within the career ladder is diminished. Their counterparts who started the same time with them are getting paid more than them, are getting pay rises, are getting new job opportunities, new job offers, because there is a lot of you know, there is a lot of barriers that are facing the young people with disabilities. But when we start talking about money, there is a long history, and I think it's what we need to start thinking of as a society, that we want to educate our young people with and without disabilities, to be able to understand that the world that they are coming into is going to be different, that the jobs that they are going to start looking for in the next 10-15 years are different from what they are studying, and they need to start thinking of that, so that when it comes to handling money, the right investments to make, the right savings to make, even the retirement plan, it becomes different.
And at that time, and of course, it's something that we need to, keep, what is it called? Upskilling, if that is the word, upskilling. Okay, all right, because again, like I said, time changes and things change at the same time. And of course, Stephen mentioned something that others of people talk about, and that is times are difficult. I can barely, survive. I can barely take care of my daily needs. So, nitapata hiyo ingine, to put aside to prepare for my future, so that when it comes to maneuvering through this difficult, times that we are living in at the moment, but also making sure that our future, sort of looks bright, so that we don't get to that age where we're like, hiya, okay, I don't have anything, to sustain me in the future.
Okay. What we see nowadays going around is, when you look at the young people, they have this mentality of YOLO.
You only live once.
You only live once. They forget that you also need to live tomorrow. And if you put that into perspective, then you realize that you also need something for tomorrow. And if that gets in our daily discipline, then you'll be able to take care of the tomorrow. There's this saying that if you take care of the pennies, the shillings will take care of themselves. So even during hard times, the little that you're able to save, the pennies that you're able to save, will actually go into shillings tomorrow. And one key thing in savings is discipline. So if you can discipline yourself during hard times, so even during the good times, when you are flush with money and the good times are rolling in, then you should be able to set aside a certain percentage of what you are getting. So the thing is to get that culture, that behavior, that attitude, create that attitude, and just try to live within those means that you're able to live within. Do not be extravagant. And if you have a rule of the thumb and say, I'll be able to save 10% of whatever I get, and you dedicate it and put it aside, then you will be able to have something for tomorrow. And you'll be going along the journey of building a savings culture.
There's usually also this conversation around how much are you supposed to save and why are you saving, because there's a lot of talk about it's important to save, but what are you saving for, right? And how much is not too much but too little, because a lot of people say, I get this much. It's very little, for me to save 100 shillings or 50 shillings. That's very little, so let me just enjoy the moment, and then when we get a bigger chunk is when you save. You talked about how important it is for parents, and caregivers and guardians, and even entities that are responsible, like the banking sector, you said, to again be at the forefront of promoting such conversation. So the big question is then, how early is too early, or not too early, but how early should we start these conversations around saving, and preparing for our future?
At Postbank, we are very deliberate in terms of that conversation, because part of our key mandate, apart from just operating the branches that we have and operating the entities that give those products, one of the key things we are mandated with is that savings training. We go to schools. We try as much as possible to get to the young and tell them about money and what they need to do about savings. It's a culture that needs to start from that very young age, and we are very deliberate about it, because once the young learn about what we need to do, then by the time they are growing old, they will be having that in the back of their mind, that this is how we are supposed to do with our financial, they'd be aware in terms of managing their financial affairs. We've come across old people, and when we talk to them about some of the key products we have on, like savings as you earn, so you're talking to somebody who is around 20, 30, 40, and they are asking, where were you when you were in school? When I used to get this pocket money of 100 shillings. I wish you told me to save 10 shillings.
Save 10 shillings
because now I'll be very far. When you're telling that to somebody who is 30, they're already hardened in their ways, and for them to shift is very difficult. So the idea is to reach out to schools and put universities, just talk to them about financial management and what they need to do about money, and just inculcate that savings culture from that age.
Okay.
We may not have enough resources to do that, but we try as much as possible. So it's never too young to start your child on savings. If you look at Postbank, we used to have those 2 small piggy banks. If you are able to get those small piggy banks, let that child today sacrifice not buying a sweet, not buying an ice cream, and put that 10 bob, 20 bob, 30 bob. You'll be surprised at the end of the month, they'll be having 200, 300, which if you tell them, let's go to the bank, and they put it aside, because we have those products where you as a parent can come in and operate that account for the child. They'll be so happy to see that there's something there for them.
And also see the growth, you know, of the little shillings that you save here and there. And we see that a lot with so many, you know, parents now, you know, having that piggy bank, you know, for their children, which is really a good thing. But I'll come back to you in terms of fine. So understanding, so then what am I doing with my savings? Because like I said, a lot of people say save, save, save. But then what are you saving for, and how do you grow you know, your savings at the same time? But let's talk to Stephen. 64% of persons with disabilities are unemployed, right? And then we also have, you know, the whole question about vocational skills, and of course this again translates to a 20% higher chance you know, of finding work for persons with disabilities. But at the same time, finding these opportunities for them. And of course this is the whole question about inclusion. How are we doing? What more do we need to do? What are some of the gaps that you have identified?
It's interesting looking at the data, because as it is from the employers, I sit a lot in meetings within the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and I know what I hear from employers. There is more demand than there is supply for young people with disabilities in the labor market. And there was a study that was done by Site Savers, and they did mention, and it did come out from employers. But then again, we have a big group of young people who are looking for work that are unable to find work. And the question from the youth is, what's the disconnect? This data that you're showing us is wrong, and the reality is that it's not wrong. The reality is that just last week we had a company saying that we are taking on interns, and we need engineers. We need engineers with a disability, and we can't find them. We can't find them because there is a whole exclusion within the academic space. Young people with disabilities not finding an opportunity to learn, to go to school, to get educated, and even those that manage to get to the university, the university is not in a position to train a deaf engineer, for example, or an engineer who has visual impairment, because their entire facilities are not inclusive. So there is a very big issue which is leading to a situation whereby the young people with the disability are feeling left out. Even those that manage to get the skills, they are unable to plunge themselves into the marketplace. We have less than 500 students across the country in all the public and private universities with disabilities. Compare that to the big number of people with the, students who do not have a disability, who are also in the same, who are also coming out of the same institutions looking for work. Now, it's interesting when we start talking about then the economic gap that starts growing. We are talking about savings, and I like the theme for the Global Money Week now, and we are talking about young people being in a position to save. But if they cannot get to pivot themselves, if you are a young person who has studied finance or education, but the future is going to be different. The jobs that we have now, 45% of the current jobs that we have now are all going to be redundant in the next 15, 20 years. So the young people who are out of college now need to pivot themselves and to find the new space that belongs to them, and that is the only way that they can add value to the market. And that is what the private sector is looking for. So when on their side they say that we are not finding the right young people to employ, and it's not just for people with disabilities, it's also for youth without a disability. You know, and even those that come in, the private sector, public sector spends quite a lot in terms of training and upskilling them just for them to be functional. if you think about that, that is what the education space should be doing.
Okay.
But then there is still the role of the parent in terms of inculcating the culture of, just like how he has explained it, the culture of saving, the culture of handling money, and when you handle that money, for what purpose is that money for?
Okay.
That is still the elusive picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. So then, aside from employment, because again, there's a lot of conversation around, we need to think away from employment. Yes, employment is good. There are employers out there. There are entities and organizations and all those things that are employing people, but at the same time, you also need to think beyond employment, right? And of course, so then when it comes to empowering young people and also persons living with disabilities to also think, beyond employment, what would you say? What are some of the areas that we need to start, thinking about?
One of the things that is happening now that is creating a paradigm shift is technology. Technology is revolutionizing things, and if you look at what happened when COVID came and institutions, academic institutions, were forced to have online classes. They were never prepared for that, and it took time. And imagine that student with a disability who always struggled going to the morning class because they have to beat traffic, and now they can learn in their home. And not just learn what is taught in the university, but they can also learn from what is taught in a university in the UK or in China. And you find that you can work for you can take an internship for a company in Australia, being in Kenya.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenyans are writing and they're doing whole academic programs for universities abroad, for students abroad. We have the talent here. And technology is bringing that paradigm shift in terms of either self-employment or job placement, or even the dynamic around how work is done. Right now we have full-time employment where somebody is working 40 hours a week. In the next 5-10 years, things are going to change. The young people that we have now will not want to be employed in a full-time role. They will want 2 days a week, 1 day a week, and then work for 5-6 companies. And that is an advantage to young people with a disability. Because they're flexible, they can be able to channel their talent where they see it's valued the most, and they can be able to create a community of their own, online or offline, that gives them value, that allows them to grow, that allows them to sell themselves. So, and I think this is an opportunity that young people with disabilities can take advantage of, that is going to, give them that competitive edge.
Absolutely. All right, and Mr. Raphael, in terms of, painting a bigger picture, because again, like we said, saving is good, and understanding why you're saving that money for is very important. But at the same time, let's then take that to the economic level here in the country. Me with my little savings, right? How does that contribute to the country's economy?
Thank you. I think it's quite critical for people to know why it's important, not just in it for them, but also for the country. For the country, when we save our own and we have our own resources, then it means we have money for ourselves. I think growing up, I've realized money is very expensive if it's not yours.
True.
It's very expensive. And when you have to borrow money to do something, you have to pay an interest. And if it's coming from somebody else, then they determine how much interest they will charge, because they just decide, I'm not giving you this much, I'll give you this much.
I mean, you're desperate at that time. It's like whatever interest, fine.
So it's really critical for us as a country. We save so that we have our own internal resources, because those internal resources are easy to manage and they are not risky. You can imagine if you're borrowing in dollars, and when you look at the papers and where the world is going with the US economy mopping up all the dollars around the world, and you've borrowed in dollars and you have to repay in dollars, and then the dollar rate has shot up, then you'll start feeling the pinch, you as an individual. So you can imagine as a country at that high level where you're borrowing huge amounts for very heavy infrastructure projects. So for us to help the government, we need to save so that the government can utilize our own resources, and that's what the president has been talking about. The housing projects, he wants it to be done using internally generated resources. So for us as Post Bank, the money we people save, our customers bring to us, we normally invest it in government bonds. So this is usually used for national development, and that's basically essential for us as a country to encourage our people to save, so that we're able to get money that is able to generate income for Kenyans, not you as an individual, but also help the government not look far for funding to do its own projects.
Okay.
Once it's like that, then it makes life very easy for everyone.
A bit easier for everyone, yes, because now everybody is talking about economy imepanda, unga imepanda, you know, and all those things. But we can do, you know, the little things that we can do as a people, I mean, to help, you know, a little bit with the same. So then the question is, how then can we have governments and, you know, organizations sort of like create that inclusive economic, you know, environment, and especially for persons living with disabilities and also the young people as well, so that we deal with this whole issue about the economy and the debt ceiling, and, you know, it's a lot of things at the same time.
I'm worried as a Kenyan, thinking about what is happening and how it's affecting our young people and how unprepared we are as a country. And I'm worried that history will keep repeating itself. And I'm worried that we are not thinking about what our country will be in the next 30 years, when our young people right now are in their 40s, in their 50s.
Okay.
We are not preparing them well for the future. Those that are already out here looking for work are unable to find work, and they are unable to find themselves contributing to the economy. And because of that, they are not contributing to the growth, and they don't feel part of it. What will keep happening is that the wealth gap will keep widening, because those who are in a position are able to help their children, their young people, to pivot and to be part of the economy. Not so much because of the wealth, but because of the knowledge and the awareness that you can actually learn a new skill and it's needed somewhere. You realize that those who do not have this kind of knowledge and awareness will keep on pushing their children to study courses which are very soon going to be redundant, even before the children, the students,
the labor force,
even before they join the labor force. What they have studied has already been rendered redundant. Now, I'm happy that we are revising the CBC. And there is a task force that is set up. I'm yet to see what the outcomes of that are, because it's part of the enabling environment. And I like that it's tasking parents more with the education of their children. It's not just the teachers, because for a long time education has been left to the teachers. And the parents have a critical role. But if you think about what the future is going to be, it's going to be different if you think about the way technology is revolutionizing things. We have artificial technology, we have all of this. And the enabling environment that the government should be creating should be helping our youth to harness what is already there and what is existing, for them to be able to add value and contribute to the economy.
Absolutely. So literally have like a minute before we end the conversation. So allow me to take that as your parting shot, if you may, and give you just 30 seconds, or maybe I can give you like 10 seconds to give your parting shot, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Raphael.
That's fair.
Okay.
My parting shot is this. Our parents and the government, the government needs to push this much more to the parents. As much as the government is providing opportunities and the private sector is pushing that young people are provided an opportunity, everybody is facing a hard economic time, including the private sector itself. But there are opportunities, and it's the high time that we pivot, and we need to change. Otherwise, we will keep on being dependent as a country. We will keep on making our generation, the children that are coming up, they will come and inherit the debts that we keep borrowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. Thank you very much, Stephen. Okay, Mr. Raphael, literally 40, not 45, 30, 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Yes.
For me, my parting shot is, it's never too late to start saving. It's never too late. Anytime is savings time. They used to say anytime is tea time.
Yes.
Anytime is savings time. Whatever money you get, kindly save. And have a plan for it.
Absolutely.
Because half the time people do not have a plan. There's something you hinted on. What do you want to do with this money? Have a goal, what you want to do.
What you're saving for.
Yes.
I like that. Thank you very much. Mr. Raphael Mingisian Lekolol, Managing Director, Postbank, as well as Stephen Jenga, Country Director, Kenya Light for the World International. Thank you very much for coming by today on this Global Money Week. To help us really understand how our little savings, which again is not little, because if we all come together, again, this will much contribute, and this is as far as the economic development is concerned. So no money is too little. 10 shillings, 20 shillings, 30 shillings, it's pretty much important. The point is, make sure that you save a little bit, but also understand why you are saving that money. And the earlier, the better for all of us. All right. So thank you so much, to both of you for coming by today. And thank you for staying with us until the end of the show. So now I believe you have a better understanding as far as savings and also going for those opportunities so that you can get extra to save is concerned. So my name is Winnie Lumbembe. Have yourselves a lovely day ahead. I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Your Wild. But until then, stay safe, God bless, and remember to get vaccinated if you have not, and also save some money. Okay, goodbye for now.